What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 8 Count, a series powered by Atlanta Boxing Social Club. I'm your girl, Jasmine K, delivering weekly boxing updates, giving you my censored and uncensored viewpoint of hot topics and fight announcements. This week, we're going to get into none other than last week's fight, recapping Mikaela Mayer versus Natasha Jonas, as well as getting into some fight announcements made late this week and much more. Without further ado, let's get into this 8 count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Count number 1. Let's talk about Natasha Jonas defending her IBF World Welterweight title versus Mikaela Mayer this past Saturday, as we had Natasha Jonas making her defense in the backyard of her hometown, Liverpool. Mikaela Mayer was stepping up for the first time, going up in weight class to the welterweight division. So this was going to be a huge test for her to see exactly where she stands, not only in the welterweight class, but how she feels coming up in weight and being able to compete and being able to challenge the ones that hold the belts. This matchup between the two was scheduled as a 10 2-minute rounder opposed to the 12 3-minute rounders that Mikaela Mayer shared her disappointment in the fact that she felt like Natasha Jonas wasn't advocating hard enough for it to be a 12 3-minute rounder championship fight, given the fact that she was the current and defending IBF World Welterweight title holder. We were able to see the difference that the 12 3-minute rounders had in the championship fight between Amanda Serrano versus Daniela Ramos in comparison to this Saturday night's fight between Mikaela Mayer and Natasha Jonas, and that being the pace of the fight, the performance of both fighters, as well as the adjustments that are made inside of the ring when given ample amount of time to make adjustments. Not to take away from the performance of either of these fighters this past weekend, I thought both of them really brought their game. And unfortunately for Mikaela Mayer, Natasha Jonas was the better fighter Saturday night. Had they had a little bit more time and additional rounds added, I think both women would have been able to really go to their corners, receive instructions, come back, make the adjustments, and we wouldn't have had as close of a fight where it really could have went either way. But in situations like this, time and time again, we see that the defending champion is the one who gets the edge on the judge's card. After this fight, it was revealed that Mikaela Mayer did not have a rematch clause, but not only do I want to see her in the rematch, given that Natasha Jonas gives her a chance at the title again, I also want to see her only fighting in 12 3-minute rounders when it comes to world championship fights. I think now she has seen the difference that it can make for her in getting the decision and putting on a performance that doesn't leave it to the judge's scorecard. So we'll see what happens from here. She still has a very promising career, especially stepping up in the welterweight division. I think now she just gets a little bit more comfortable as each fight goes by. I think her fan base is still rocking with her. Not only does she have a solid American fan base, but she has been able to go over to the UK now and develop a strong fan base there. So the sky is the limit, and I'm excited to see what comes of her. Count number 2. Tank has landed a spot in the 8 count, and it's not to talk about potential matchups, but to talk about some things that he took to X and the gram earlier this week. In his request, borderline demand for at least 2 Ferraris being sent to his front door before he entertains any fight in the kingdom. Well, this has ruffled a lot of people's feathers, and some people felt as though this was a very arrogant response for him, a little too pretentious. And some, on the other hand, feel like it's a legitimate response. Let's first start with establishing the elephant that's in the room. That is, boxers are of a different pedigree of an athlete, especially when you're considering the level of edginess and roughness that is required with this sport. I like to think that there's a double-edged sword when it comes to a boxer's image. While you have fans and promoters who really praise the grittiness and the roughness and the ego-driven arrogance that comes from a fighter, I like to say that it's a double-edged sword when it comes to a boxer's image. You have most fans and promoters who praise the grittier, rougher, ego-driven, arrogant fighter, but then when you think about the window of marketability, you have brands and companies who prefer a fighter that's much more clean, well-spoken, and knows how to toe the line of confidence when it comes to promoting. Let's change the angle of this just a little bit. What's the difference between Conor McGregor's confidence from Floyd Mayweather's? What about the difference between Rolly Romero's confidence from Adrian Broner? Tyson Fury's confidence from Deontay Wilder's? Or even Tank's confidence from Devin Haney's? Well, honestly, I can't say that there is one. To simply say that there's a biased preference is the undertone of this count. I understand why some feel it's a bit too much and he should be a tad more humble, but according to who? His Excellency is moving into a sport that has been long-standing before his presence and influence. A sport that culturally has heavily been influenced by the likes of Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Roberto Duran, of which is one fighter that he named as his favorite, and Floyd Mayweather, to name a few. So to say the least, this is what comes with the sport and what is rewarded with the sport. In saying all of that, on the other side of things, I can't understand why some people feel Tank's request is a bit ridiculous and borderline disrespectful. The very point of what His Excellency has said his reasoning is for making the biggest fights in boxing is to cut out the discrepancies and the egos associated with these long drawn-out negotiations of who deserves what, who's on what side, and furthermore, and then here go Tank talking about he deserves at least 2 Ferraris at the minimum before he even starts to have a conversation about fighting in the kingdom. Well, that goes against the grain of the very point that His Excellency is trying to make. So again, I understand why some people felt as though this was borderline disrespectful and Tank should have came a little bit more correct than that. So where does this go from here? I don't know. But I would like to think that Tank is a smart enough businessman that he's not going to miss this bag, or as His Excellency puts it, he's not going to miss this train for his ego, however. Count number 3, we're getting into a fight announcement that was made earlier this week between Hitchins versus Lemos. With this fight, Hitchins, a top contender and a fast rising star within the super lightweight division, is looking to push himself closer to becoming a mandatory for either Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney. Coming into this fight, Hitchins is facing an opponent that is shorter and smaller than him. Lomas is a pressure fighter, one who fights pressing forward and stalking his opponent, not always throwing punches, constantly moving his head a bit like Mike Tyson and dipping of height, knows how to target the body well to slow the movement of his opponent down, but he really loads up while sitting on his punches, where against a crafty, athletic guy like Hitchins, this will be a problem and potentially what ends the night early for him. Lemos is not going to come in looking to make this a boxing match, but he is going to want to make this a fight, and he's going to try to get Hitchins out of there sooner than later. Hitchins is facing yet another pressure-style fighter similar to Zepeda, but of one that is considerably better than Zepeda when you think about the head movement alone. Zepeda is not a fighter who is known for getting his head off the line, whereas in watching film on Lemos is constantly looking for head movement. He's constantly looking for angles, changing his levels. So Hitchins is going to have to come with it, and he's not going to be able to fight the same fight that he had with Zepeda. In my opinion, this will be a fight that challenges his ability to make adjustments. He's calling out the Haneys and he's calling out Garcia, so I want to see in this fight. So I want to see how he compares with these guys skill-wise when it comes to making adjustments. I'm looking forward to this fight, and I really want to see that Hitchins has learned from the Zepeda fight and countering better off that back foot, as well as turning and recentering to the center of the ring from off the ropes. Count number 4. Our guy Teofimo is back in the 8 count, and this time is for leaking footage against his sparring session back in 2017 versus Rolly Romero. Teofimo leaked footage of this sparring session on X with the caption saying, "Don't worry, Oscar De La Hoya, if it comes to it, I'll handle this fake champ like I did in 2017. Let's paint a picture here and stating the obvious, maybe not so obvious to the casual fan. Rolly Romero made his pro debut in 2016. So in 2017, Rolly was still pretty much green, sparring a guy like Teofimo who had 170 amateur fights and at that point had over 11 pro career fights, compared to a guy like Rolly who laced up his first pair of gloves at the age of 16 and had only 35 amateur fights before turning pro. And at this point in 2017 had maybe 1 or 2 fights, With all that being said, I'm 100% discrediting the angle that Teofimo took with this one, but I'll give him all the credit in the world for giving Rolly a nice whooping when the time comes to it. Count number 5, Claressa Shields versus Alicia Baumgardner. This past week, I did a poll to see what you guys thought as far as if this fight was to happen. Does it happen at a catch weight? Does it happen at 147 pounds as Alicia Baumgardner has been asking for? Or does it not happen at all because the weight difference is just too much to get past? Well, you guys weighed in and said that the weight difference was too much to get past and basically that this fight doesn't make any sense. And one of the comments shared that I share similar sentiments on is the fact that it's sad to see a friendship be tarnished by monetary gain. Not too long ago, Baumgardner went live on Instagram sharing her stance and clearing the air on the fact that she has always wanted to fight Claressa Shields, presenting this as an opportunity for both of them to make the biggest fight in women's boxing happen in their hometown of Detroit, headlining at the Detroit Little Caesars Arena. So while Baumgardner is painting it as no ill intended, friendship still standing, let's make the best business decision for both of us and make this fight happen, here's where I would have to disagree with this, and I'm on the side of Claressa Shields. I feel as though there comes a point where in this situation where you have two women who are in two totally different weight classes, you have Claressa Shields who's fighting at 160, Alicia Baumgardner who's fighting at 130, and Alicia is trying to push this fight to happen at 147. Whereas you have Claressa Shields who is at 160 and will have to come down to 147. And let's say that we get this at a catch weight that's somewhere in the middle at 150 something. Okay, no harm, no foul. I think it's easier for Claressa Shields to come down from 160 to 150-ish or whatever they agree on. But then you got Alicia Baumgardner who is comfortable at 147, now having to go even more up in weight. And what's that going to do? Is she going to bulk up to make that weight? Is she just not going to worry about the nutrition of her training camp to make that weight? I don't know. But I think coming into that weight, Claressa Shields is by far the bigger woman, and I think that that is going to be a big difference maker when we see it on the women's side. I hate to see this happen for Shields because she seems as though someone who really prides herself on loyalty and friendships and relationships that she's built, and now you have a relationship that is being tarnished by the opportunity of monetary gain. Not only is that situation playing out, but now we have Michaela Mayer entering into the chat saying that if Claressa wants to fight, she'll fight her. Michaela Mayer is at 147, and honestly, I think the rematch with her and Alicia Baumgardner is just as big as Alicia Baumgardner versus Claressa Shields, if not more, because of the history that both of those two have as far as the going back and forth and the first fight that happened between the two where Alicia Baumgardner stole away with the titles. We'll see what happens though. We'll see how this plays out. It seems as though conversations are a little bit more serious and making this fight happen, so we'll see. Anyways, moving on. In all of the fight announcements made this week, let's talk about some of the outrageous, not so outrageous fight announcements that still caught us by surprise. Count number 6, Lomas versus Kambosos. Not so outrageous and not so surprising of a fight announcement, but I like this for both guys as it will serve as sort of a comeback fight, redemption fight for both men. Lomas coming back from the devastating loss he suffered to Haney by unanimous decision in May of last year, and Kambosos having lost twice to Haney by unanimous decision. Since then, Kambosos has had a comeback fight, but this still I think is a redemption fight to stay amongst the top names called out for the biggest fights towards what may be the dwindling of their career. Shakur will be the next biggest fight for both of these guys, given that the victor gets Shakur next. Now, neither one of them has called out Shakur, but Shakur has been vocal since the Lomas versus Haney results in the fact that he feels that he will put on a much more dominating performance versus Lomas, and I think he's looking for that fight with Lomas to make that stance that he is the better fight when it comes to him and Haney, and that if he can do this to Lomas, that he's going to be even more dominating versus Haney, furthermore proving a point that he's better than Haney and he deserves that shot Now, with Haney moving up to the super lightweight division and Shakur still being at the lightweight division, I don't know how that plays out as far as him wanting that fight solely with Loma to prove that he deserves a shot with Haney and that he's better than Haney. But I think if he's given the opportunity to fight Loma, this is a great name on his resume. And if he beats Loma, I think that puts him in another stratosphere of skill-wise and higher in the future pound-for-pound rankings. If everything plays out in this way, I got Loma all day long in a matchup with him and Kambosos. And then if Shakur gets the winner of that fight, I got Shakur all day long over Loma and definitely over Kambosos. Now, if we do get this matchup down the line between Loma and Shakur, I do think that Loma will go all 12 rounds with Shakur, and I think similar to what Shakur did to Valdez as far as making him look bad, I think he does the same thing with Loma despite the differences in styles. I think it would be a huge statement for Shakur if he beats the Matrix Loma in the same fashion that he beat Valdez, and where Loma wasn't able to touch him all night long. He really shakes things up if he gets this opportunity with Loma. Not only do I think this, I know Shakur has to know it, and I know that's why he wants this fight so bad. Moving on to other fight announcements made this week. Count number 7. Rolly Romero versus Pitbull Isaac Cruz. I didn't see this one coming. I don't think Ryan saw this one coming either. I'm giving this matchup outrageous and unexpected as much as it was because we were all hoping that we were going to get the Rolly versus Ryan fight, especially after Ryan took to the gram and to X moments before, not even a full 24 hours, saying that he is fighting Rolly next, and this fight is happening April 20th, and to stay tuned as he is assuring that we will all get the fight announcement soon. Well, that didn't happen. We're definitely not getting that. And as the Breakfast Club Charlamagne himself would award, we're giving Ryan Garcia the Donkey of the Day. I am not claiming the rights to this award. I am simply referencing what if Charlamagne had known what just happened, he would have did himself. Golden Boy continues to make an ass out of Ryan as the saga continues between Golden Boy versus Ryan Garcia. Well, I bet Rolly is getting a kick out of that. Okay, enough of the puns. Although this caught us by surprise, I'm actually not mad at this fight. I think that this is actually a pretty good fight considering both styles of both guys being hard punching guys. I think that we're in tune for a big fight, and while I think that it's main event worthy, PBC is continuing on their streak of stacking their undercards and really giving us some action-packed nights of boxing. I'm going with the bigger dog in this fight and giving Pitbull Isaac Cruz the edge, but we'll see. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Count number 8. Tszyu versus one-time Keith Thurman. Well, I didn't see this one coming. I mean, not even with the crystal ball did I see this fight coming. But okay. I'll be honest and admit that I'm not too thrilled about this fight, and maybe it's because it's been so long since we've seen Thurman in action, and definitely since he's been relevant. I mean, the most that he's been relevant lately is with Clarissa Shields calling him out to fight, but that was then, and this is now. One time's only loss was suffered to the hands of Pac-Man, so let's see if he still got it. I will say that this is one hell of a comeback fight facing Tszyu. On the other side of that, Tim is coming back from a tough win against a tough opponent in Brian Mendoza back in October of last year. I think Tim and Thurman have similar styles in the way that they are willing to stand in the center of the ring, not necessarily fighting in the pocket, but not fighting at range either. They both have the ability to control distance and range. However, I foresee Tim giving Thurman the space to be the aggressor and looking to read and counter. So I see this being a match where whoever can make the better reads will be the man with his hand raised at the end of the night. Well, that wraps up the 8 count with your girl, Jasmine K. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this week's boxing updates. Let me know what you thought about some of the most outrageous boxing news that happened this week, as well as some of the fights that were announced this week, and anything else that you have to add to what was covered in the 8 count. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with anybody else that you know will be interested in this content. Until next time.
I'll do the best I can with what I got.
Oh!